Running the Show presents Athletics World Weekly, Week 14. We take a look at the first big week of the spring marathon season, featuring a marathon world record attempt at the Rotterdam Marathon. 26,000 people battle hot temperatures at the Boston Marathon. We head to the Vienna Marathon, showcasing a unique half-marathon duel of the legendary Paula Radcliffe versus the great Haile Gebrselassie. While 33,000 people filled the streets of Paris for the Paris Marathon. All this and more on Athletics World Weekly. Boston, Massachusetts is the first stop, as Monday, April 15th, in a Patriots Day tradition of the last 116 years, finds a group of runners at the starting line of the Boston Marathon. This year also celebrates the 40th year of legal female participation in the Grand Marathon, and the elite female start is another concession to modernity in the face of Boston tradition. 25 minutes later, we find the male elite start along with the first of 3 waves of mass starts, revealing once again the world's oldest marathon in motion, with more than 26,000 runners eventually crossing the starting line. But big crowds are now commonplace in Boston, so the story of 2012 that will be remembered long after the minor facts have been forgotten was the 27 Celsius, 86-degree Fahrenheit temperatures facing the runners and the racing strategy to compensate for such hot conditions. The effect of the weather was obvious as the women's race progressed at a slow 2:37 marathon finish pace. A sluggish half-marathon split of 1:17 was the standard until the pace was accelerated slightly at the 25-kilometer mark, which was passed in 1:30.59. The star-filled lead pack, consisting of defending champion Caroline Keelow, stayed tight, but it was around 30 kilometers that Keelow ran directly into a spectator attempting to hand water to the elite, shook things up. Just like Keelow was no match for the portly American, and the collision sent the 2011 champion to the back of the pack. She never really recovered and ultimately dropped out of the race. Next to fall near 33 kilometers was ING New York champion Pierre Dado. One by one, Rono, Sigai, Kasim fell off the back until only Sharap and Sungang were in contention by the home stretch of Boylston Street, where Sharap hit the accelerator hard, leaving Sungang to contemplate second place. Sharap crosses the line in 2:31.50, a time that will carry an asterisk as brilliant when the heat factor is considered. Meanwhile, on the men's side, a slow pace was also in effect, as a huge pack of elite men slogged through a slow 10-kilometer split of 31:02 and 46:49 for 15 kilometers. Just before the half mark, more than 15 runners were still in the mix of things, before Matthew Casario put a bit more pace in the proceedings, splitting the pack into a quintet of men around 27.5 kilometers. But Casario would pay dearly for this brassy move under these unforgiving conditions, and was soon out of gas and couldn't keep his surge alive, ultimately fading to 7th place overall. This tiny pack soon dissolved into a duo, led by the late charging Wesley Korir. By Massachusetts Avenue, with less than 2 kilometers left in the race, Wesley had somehow managed to climb back into the race after being 57 seconds off the leader at one point in the proceedings. Korir could now sense victory, and he was liberally applying pace during the long 600-meter home stretch. Korir would hold on to take the hottest major marathon in recent history in a respectable 2:12.40 finishing time. Athletics World Weekly now stops in Vienna and the imperial city of Austria for the Austrian Marathon. In a special OMV Champions half-marathon race within a race, Paula Radcliffe was given a 7-minute, 52-second handicap start over her lone male competition, who just happened to be the running world's biggest male superstar, former men's marathon world record holder, the one and only Haile Gebrselassie. Haile was chasing Paula with a time handicap based on the differential between the two athletes' best half-marathon times. While this special competition was in flight, the full marathon was also underway, featuring more than 36,000 runners footing the streets of the elegant city. For 1 hour, Vienna was the athletics fans' dream, as the OMV Champions Half Marathon Challenge, together with the 29th edition of the full Vienna Marathon, provided compelling running action. While the OMV half marathon captured the attention of most, the full marathon consisted of a stellar field, including returning champion Henry Cegut, who was chasing the 4-year-old course record of 2:07:38. Meanwhile, Paula was in fine racing form, but Geb was closing the 7-minute 52-second gap quickly. The Briton was on a speedy 68-minute pace as she hit 5 kilometers in 16:13, an OMV champion's half marathon record pace. But Geb was on course record pace as well, hitting 5 kilometers in 14:12, so each kilometer was bringing him closer and closer to Radcliffe and a revision of his own record. Paula's 10K split of 33:31 revealed her diminished effort as this placed her on a 71-minute pace. Her figure was soon within Geb's sight around 15 kilometers, and it was now an obvious formality of how this contest would evolve. As Geb passed the struggling Radcliffe, he motioned for her to come along, but it was not to be, and he was soon on his own and out of sight. Hailey's course record pace slowed a bit as he cruised into the finish straight, recording a final time of 60 minutes 52 seconds, 34 seconds off his own course standard set last year. Now all eyes were on Radcliffe, as the fading superstar obviously struggled to maintain her composure. Radcliffe was to cross the line in 72 minutes, 31 seconds, a course record. However, this record would not console perhaps the greatest female marathon runner of all time, who was severely disappointed in her Vienna debut. But Father Time provides the ultimate race for all athletes, and despite being crowd favorites, Paula and Geb are in the twilights of stellar careers as a new generation of stars emerge from the shadows worldwide. This was apparent in the full marathon as a series of really fast splits led to a 1:45:12 for 35 kilometers, where Henry Cegut, winner of the 2010 edition of this race, left the pack behind and ran solo to the finish line. He won in a course record of 2:06:58. Athletics World Weekly now heads to the Dutch city of Rotterdam for the 31st edition of the ABN AMRO Rotterdam Marathon. The organizers and sponsors of the ABN AMRO Rotterdam Marathon, or the Marathon of the Muse, put up a cash bonus of $350,000 in a world record challenge that generated a bit more buzz than usual among the elite athletes of the world. The race is the largest one-day event in the Netherlands, as more than 32,000 runners have assembled in this port city for the thrill of running alongside the elites in their attempt to revise the marathon standard set by Patrick Macau in Berlin last year. Rotterdam was last the course of record in 1998 and maintains a current record of 2:04:27, currently the third fastest time in history. The elite pack of 13 included 6 pacemakers, along with a core of 7 runners expected to challenge the world record. Given the nickname the Magnificent Seven, the core group of runners assigned to return the world record to the Rotterdam course consisted of 4 Kenyans and 3 Ethiopians. Eliud Kiptanui, Wilson Chebet, Gilbert Kirua, Faisa Laisa, and Getu Feleke were intent on not only rewriting the record, but in also putting up a fast time in an effort to make the exclusive Kenyan and Ethiopian Olympic teams. The Ethiopians and Kenyans literally need to set a world record to qualify for the rare 3 spots each country is allotted for the Olympics. The group passed the 5-kilometer marker in officially 14:38, 2 seconds slower than Macau in Berlin. By the time the next major split was crossed, the group had increased the pace considerably as they passed 10 kilometers in 29:09, 8 seconds faster than the world record pace. With approximately 75% of the race still to be conquered, it was essential that the elite pack slow the pace down a bit in an effort to not give away the record to the middle section of the course. On the women's side, Ethiopian Merima Hassan could only try to hang on as her compatriot and new marathon sensation Tiki Galana quickly left her 5 seconds behind by 5 kilometers. Galana blazed through 5 kilometers in 16:14, that she has done consistently throughout the last year, ran with only her pacemakers as companion. Tiki has been quietly turning the heads of athletics fans worldwide with her low-key running agenda, bypassing the major marathons but winning every small city marathon she has competed in during the last year. Amsterdam, Xiamen, among others, have all had their records revised by the 24-year-old emerging Ethiopian. By 20 kilometers passed officially in 1:05:49, Elena was on record pace for the course and offered a considerable female distraction to the male world record chase. By the marathon halfway marker, which was passed in 1:01:37, a still large group of athletes were in the hunt for the record and prize money, as they were running 6 seconds faster than the Berlin pace. Now things were starting to get interesting. Around the 24-kilometer point, the two Ethiopians, Feleke and Teske, decided that the world record pace was not quick enough and surged ahead of schedule even more. Passing 25 kilometers in 1:13, the two compatriots had created a gap of more than 7 seconds over the nearest Kenyan and were running close to 18 seconds ahead of world record pace. By 35 kilometers, all the pacemakers were gone, and the two Ethiopians were left to chase the record alone. But the surge at 25 kilometers would prove to be the undoing of the record pace as the two crossed the 35-kilometer mark in 1:42.33, 1 second slower than the world record standard. Although the record pace was lagging, the two Ethiopians were now focused on winning the race and beating the Kenyans, who were now 23 seconds behind, with the gap growing bigger by the kilometer. In the final kilometers, it was Teske who would throw down the final surge as he quickly built a margin of more than 20 meters over Feleke. He would cross the line victorious in a splendid time of 2:04.48, the second fastest time of the year. Feleke would claw his way back into contention, finishing 2 seconds behind. Ethiopia now has the top 3 times of the year. On the women's side, Galeno was still cruising into superstar class territory as she was way ahead of course record pace and was sure to break the 2:20 barrier. Galeno across the line in a time of 2:18.58, setting a new personal best, a course record, and Ethiopian national record, and moving to the top of my list as favorites for the gold at the London 2012 Olympics. Athletics World Weekly now heads to Paris, France to check out the Paris Marathon. The City of Light is the grand stage as thousands of recreational runners and elite athletes await the gunshots signaling the start of the Marathon of Paris. The Paris event ranks among the grandest sports events on the planet and is comparable to any marathon in the world. Who could deny that the Champs-Élysées start with more than 35,000 runners and the Arc de Triomphe as the Titanic backdrop does not rank among the grand settings of worldwide athletics. The ancient deity of Mercury stands high above the streets of Paris at the former site of the Bastille as a huddle of athletes blaze through 5 kilometers in 14:56 and 10 kilometers in 29:21, well ahead of Paris course record. One can only be reminded of Mercury's mythical allusion to the gift of speed and swiftness. By 30 kilometers, reached in 1:28.04, Kenyan Stanley Biwott had taken the lead and was running record pace on a brave solo effort. Biwott left the two Ethiopians, Raji Asefa and Sisa Jisa, well behind as he cranked through 40 kilometers in 1:58.10. Biwott slowed a little, but stayed on the record pace. He crossed the line in an awesome time of 2:05.11 despite the windy, cold conditions. The two Ethiopians sprinted during the last 100 meters of the race, and Asefa eventually took second place in 2:06.23, smashing his personal best by more than 4 minutes. Third place Jisa finished his debut marathon in a fantastic time of 2:06.26. And on the women's side, Teofile Teske also set a new course record with his 2:21.39 effort.